This past weekend was a blast. 5 gigs in all between Saturday and Sunday, 3 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, juggling the kids. Wife was out of town, and I made it happen. I got through it. Wrist injury and all, I was able to, play successfully. It seemed like it wasn't really phasing me, but definitely by the end of Saturday night, my wrist and hand were just extremely exhausted, sore, and ready to be left alone for at least 24 hours. But didn't have 24 hours. I had a church service gig in the morning, Sunday morning, and then another one, right, an hour and a half almost later, right? And so it was one of those things where I could only lay off of it for so long, but it's okay. I got through it injury-free, or further injury. It's definitely stronger and better, although it's still not 100% on a Monday evening, but we are getting there. I just want to say that this podcast episode is definitely going to talk about some live things. So if you feel uncomfortable at some point, maybe it's the discomfort you need, right, to reevaluate certain things in your own life, even if it's not the exact same issue I'm going to address later on. But definitely just take this with a grain of salt, and if for entertainment, hopefully you can enjoy what I'm about to say later on. And so here we go. Saturday morning, drop off my kids at my parents' at 7:45 a.m. and booked it back home so I could grab my gear and go to my gig. Why? Because I drive a Prius C, which is a clown car, right? You can only fit so much in it, but fits all my gear, right? Just not a family and all my gear. So that's why I had to do what I did, right? Drop off the kids first, come back to get my gear, head to gig number 1, which was at my son's school. It was a car show fundraiser event. We played from 9 a.m. to 11 and 11 a.m., right? Not at night. So it was just a 2-hour gig, but it was a great time. The weather was beautiful. Sun was out. Some overcast here and there. Nice little breeze. Sweater weather, right? But you could definitely feel a little bit of warmth at times, a little bit of chilliness at times. And again, it was one of those things where if I could, I would have taken off the sweater at certain times and put it back on at certain times. But when you have a bass slung over your shoulder, right, and there's only so much time between tunes, like, you're not going to be doing that between every other song. It's such a hassle. So I just left my sweater on, and I'm not a sweater kind of person, but I was like, man, I'm really not wanting to feel cold, especially with my already not 100% wrist, right? I don't think the cold would have helped it perform better, right, or stabilize better during my playing. Got through the 2 hours for that first gig with Down For You. Had George Campos on sax, Nathan Guzman on drums, Cesar Enamorado on keys and vocals, and it was a great time. It was very nostalgic for us three, as in George, Cesar, and myself, because we ran Down For You for a good 5 years, playing 2 to 3 times a week at times, and it was just a fun band, right? Very nostalgic, the sound, the overall mix that we had, and people enjoyed it. We definitely had some people come up and ask for business cards, wanting to hire out for some private events. So Down For You, still around, more low-key, but we still book a couple times a year. So I'm glad to have had that revisitation of that type of sound and lineup. I broke down my gear at 11 a.m. I have an EV PA tower, right? The 30M. It's a great unit. I initially bought it to just leave in my studio, just to have a small PA system in my studio for rehearsals, for listening to music, have my kids sing and have a mic plugged in too. But it didn't take long for me to take it out, right? To an actual live gig. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave it pristine and just set up in the room, untouched, unscathed. But I took it out, and I even took it out on a couple of gigs where I was not headlining, or excuse me, it wasn't my band, right, or it wasn't my name on the bill. And after that, it did get scuffed up a little bit, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna take it out when it's my gig that I book. I need to, be selective and try to keep this thing working and looking good. And hopefully, at some point, I really just don't take it out of the studio at all, ever, even if it's from my own gig. But we'll see. Maybe I'll get another one at some point. Okay, so the Tower, yeah, the EV30M, it's a great unit. Love it. It works great outdoors as well. Broke my stuff down, my bass gear, loaded up the car, headed to gig number 2 with Fritzo at Porch Fest, which is an event that happens annually. A bunch of houses or residents end up donating their porch to have live music performed. And it's all for free event. Although some people may say, hey, we'll pay you guys to play at our house or on our porch. But all in all, free event for people to come out, public event, family friendly. And it was a great time to see all sorts of people come out, young, old, middle age, kids, you name it. It's just everybody having a great time, riding bikes, carrying their kids and stuff in strollers or wagons, and very cool. But for some reason, the last couple of years, Porch Fest has happened during a rainy part of the season, and it was definitely raining that day or that evening at my last gig. And we'll get to the last gig in a little bit, but before I do, I just want to say that I had a great time with Fritzo at his gig, at Porch Fest gig, right? That's my second gig of the day. And we played from 12 to 1 p.m. It was a great time. Fernando Jimenez on electric guitar, Ed Murray on drums, myself on bass, and the man Fritz Alvarez on acoustic guitar and vocals. Played a lot of reggae, Caribbean type of music, and yeah, kind of a mixture of rock and pop for sure. After that gig was over, I broke down my stuff, and I was definitely feeling tired by then. I was feeling very hungry at that. But I was like, man, I got to go get my kids. So I immediately headed home, unloaded, and headed to my parents to go pick up my kids. Picked them up. But before leaving the house to go pick up my kids, I was like, man, I don't have time to go through a drive-through or eat any sort of leftovers at home just yet. I need to grab whatever snack I can eat on the road. So I grabbed some Chile-covered peanuts and a small bag of beef jerky and some gummy bears. The Albanese gummy bears, those are my favorite. So basically just snacks, junk food, and drove off to go get my kids. And if you remember, I turned 40 last Wednesday. So my stomach is not what it used to be. It's not as strong or fortified. Whatever plumbing is internal at the moment is not functioning as it did in my 20s. And so picked up my kids, drove to the gas station, and was feeling very questionable. So I immediately gassed up as fast as I could, headed out, drove home, rushed to the restroom as soon as I got home, and I barely made it in time. I definitely learned my lesson. I cannot be consuming large amounts of spicy foods, right? Spicy things. And so, hey, it's what it is. I hopefully learned my lesson, and to not just be gorging myself with junk food for one, or large amounts of spicy foods or snacks. Yeah, I definitely, emptied the tank and got some food and water in my system to be able to then eventually take my kids to my sister-in-law's so that I could head out to my third gig at Porch Fest as well with Ralph Edwards and the Vibe Check Band, which was an insane gig. It was such a blast and just euphoric. Most of the gigs we do, we're on a stage. There's a crowd in front. Many times people are dancing and whatnot in front. But with this Porch Fest situation, we were playing underneath a canopy, and we're on the street by the sidewalk in front of a house, and we had people behind us, in front of us, on either side of us. So we're like engulfed with humans, right, that are eager to hear and enjoy our playing. So it was insane how crowded it was, and it was raining the entire time. People did not care. They thrived in the rain, and we soaked it up. Not the rain, but we soaked up the energy and had a blast performing for I want to say an hour and a half roughly. So Porch Fest, water everywhere, raining constantly, people just digging it, singing, dancing. And I want to just say that all my gear survived, right? I had a great time playing out there, even though there's definitely water running over, around, kind of on the street, right? On the asphalt that we were set up on. Unfortunately, the piano player's keyboard cut out like 10 times because we assumed that there's some water that slipped or splashed onto the surge protector where he was plugged in. And so that was causing some issues, which was, a little scary to think that something could go really wrong in that situation, if that was the case. But even then, like I kind of had some afterthoughts about the event, not the event itself, but just playing out in the rain and my own gear and how it's set up. The cab was fine, right? It was elevated enough where there wasn't a huge puddle building or water rising to get to the cones or past the actual base part of the cab. But my mono light board, I did feel like, man, if this water had been rising just a little bit more, sipping underneath somehow, building up some water or puddle, things could go really wrong. Water could have maybe another half centimeter or so touched my chalk's power supply or any other connections there, and then things would go really wrong. So it made me think, like, dude, would I ever want a pedal board, whether big or small, after that situation, to be at least an inch of clearance before the power brick is touched by anything, whether it's dirt, the floor, etc. Right, an inch clearance. And then I'm like, is that even enough, right? Because mine's like maybe half a centimeter of clearance. Maybe it needs to be like 2 inches of clearance. I don't know. How paranoid do we need to be? But how often do we really play out in the rain in that type of situation? But it did make me wonder, and it did get me a little paranoid. I was like, wow, if we were to do another outdoor gig where I possibly would be playing in the rain and there's a chance of some water issues or whatever, at least for my pedal board, I was like, wow, I could use my Vertex travel light board that my good friend Rex sent me. There's no pedals on it. It's still bare, and I could literally put my mono light board on top of that, and now you're having about a good inch of clearance for that board to sit on. And yeah, sure, it's just like a plate, for it to sit on, but it looked kind of cool with the riser part open and then the mono light board just sitting on top of that. Yeah, it works, right? I don't know that I'd ever actually do that, but it's an option in a more wet, rainy situation. What are your thoughts on gear, water, rain? What situations have you encountered where things have gotten a little scary, things that have maybe cut out, there were electrical issues, maybe short, surge protector tripping, whatever. Yeah, I don't have too many horror stories or anything like that, but it does make me a little anxious and curious as to when do you say, hey, we're not setting up here, or hey, I really need to be proactive in what gear I take and or the setup. Speaking of gear and just overall setup, I used my mono light board at all 5 gigs this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Ended up taking it to my first church service gig, as well as the second church service gig, which was out of town. And to my surprise, there wasn't a bass amp there. I thought there was going to be one, as there was the last time years ago when I played there. So I showed up, and apparently their amp head had gone out. So there was a cab that they didn't actually have on the platform, but it's right. I got there, and I got a DI out of my mono light board. I'm using the Canvas line isolator, and it worked just fine. So we're covered there. I did feel like it would have been nice to have had the color box with me to go ahead and provide like a wider, bigger, more amp-like type of sound other than my actual just bass EQ'd a certain way through my effects pedal board. That I really didn't use many effects on that second church service gig, but maybe that's a thing I need to work on a little more, because I know there's people that work on amp and cab sims. I don't really do that. I sometimes tailor some amp or cab, not even the cab sims, more of the amp or preamp sims for certain effects. But other than that, I don't really do it for tone shaping or having some sort of tone projection on a dry bass signal. So I may have to do some homework and troubleshoot some things. Moving on, I just want to say that I'm really excited about my May 5th Cinco de Mayo solo gig. It's going to be a just bass solo jazz performance where I'm covering a lot of Latin tunes, whether they're pop, reggaeton, cumbia, salsa, some boleros, some classics, but I will be mixing in a few English pop tunes that I will, change style and present in a Latin feel of sorts. I'll do a few originals as well, and so I'm very excited for this week, because I have been working a few tunes up here and there, just making the list, like what can I do, which ones can I cover, what popular tunes would fit well with the way I play, the range of the bass, right, the instrument. Do I need to transpose them? Do I need to, or would I like to keep them in the original key, just to make it an easier reference to study, practice, and learn the melodic lines, right? And so far, everything's working out in the original keys. I am using the full modular setup, right? The double-decker modular board, as well as my mono light main brain board, coupling them together and using the the looper and the Ampero and the looper in the modular board, right? The Ditto TC Electronic looper. I may take the external 3-piece or 3 little pedal system that I use for when I do perform with Andromeda Azul. And that way I can split it into 2 outs, right? So the drummer can get a mix of just the looper sound without any other bass mix. But I'm just going to use it for looping, and I'm not sending a second signal anywhere else. So I really want to try to just keep it down to the 2 boards and go a little skinnier, even though I will have to open up the hatch or use my Ampero in a fashion where I have to do a little more tap dancing to access the looper. But I think what I'll do too is that I will assign one of the 2 switches in the pedalnetics that's hooked up to the Ampero as a looper access function. That way it just gets to it much more cleanly, much more quickly. And it's so far so good. Rehearsing here in the room the studio has been fun. Going through these covers and trying to, make the tunes recognizable, but also enjoy the opportunity to solo, right? To create melodies and melodic ideas over changes that are going to be associated with a cover song. Drink some water real quick. Right off the bat, there's going to be a unique sound with these tunes because the bass is a hollow body bass. It's going to be nothing but bass loops, right, that I'm playing over. So there's going to be a certain type of soundscape and frequency that is going to speak differently as if it were, or if it had been, or if it were going to be some sort of electric guitar or other actual guitar playing the melodic lines. Obviously, a guitar has a much higher range. I don't want to say it's better. It's just different. And I'm enjoying the sounds that I'm getting playing the tunes with my range of instrument, right? It's a 6-string bass, tune B to high C. And I think once people hear the music, they're going to be like, oh, I recognize that tune. Cool. Okay, all right. He's making it his own. Oh, he's soloing. There's the jazz component that is a focus for the venue, is a focus for me in what I'm going to play or how I'm going to play, regardless of the actual pieces. I am actually going to play a few jazz standards too. Not many, but probably like 3 or 4. There's 3 sets, and I'll probably play 2 in each set. That way, it kind of breaks up the set list, right, from pop tunes to a few originals, and again, some jazz standards. I think it'll be a good mix. Although I will say 70% will be, the Latin covers for sure. I want to use the word Latin jazz just because there's a jazz take on it, and even if, sure, there's a tune that's specifically a cumbia or specifically reggaeton, meshing and changing the rhythms a little bit to fit my way of playing and the bass, it kind of just starts all the more sounding like Latin jazz. If you're familiar with the style, it's going to be more along those lines. The gig starts at 7 in Tulare, California, at the 26th Hour Speakeasy. So if you're in the area, if you're curious, don't have any Cinco de Mayo plans, come out to Tulare, California, 7 to 10 p.m., 26th Hour Speakeasy. It'll be a great time, nice little venue, upscale, fairly new from what I hear, and I'm excited. It'll be my first time performing there. And also because how I got that connection was through my trio band, right, or my trio Andromeda Azul, performing at a local venue here in Fresno, California. We actually had a 4th person on that gig, and the contact person really enjoyed what we did with the Bad Bunny jazz tribute music that we did, right? So it was Bad Bunny, but with the jazz take, all instrumental, and they were trying to get that or something similar in that nature out there at their venue, and they're like, well, let's get you as a solo act first. Let's just get your foot in the doorway and make connections and have you on a smaller scale, just to kind of showcase what you can do, and obviously that you have more in your group that can expand and augment the sound, right, and the overall energy, right, with a full band for hopefully another date, right, hopefully another live music event. So I'm super excited to again just play solo for one, but also to kind of be an ambassador for my own trio and trying to get us to branch out into new venues and again out of town, right? Even though it's only about a 45-50 minute drive, it's one of those things that is doable. It's not super crazy uncomfortable. I drive 45 minutes to the middle school that I teach at every day, so it's one of those kind of drives and situations that, again, I'm used to, and super eager to play original music, play the bass, and do the whole effects pedal looper craziness, right, that makes me happy. And I can just jam out here in my studio every night, but it's nice to do that live. It's nice to take risks and create sonic textures, musical ideas that may never be repeated, right, in this exact same fashion, right? Some new, unique situations that are live. And I do hope to record much of the performance on Cinco de Mayo, right, May 5th, and hopefully find some gold nuggets of not just for content, not just for content creation and to put out there on social media, but to also share for any or like to anyone to send out as little promos should anybody be more curious about my solo work, what I can do as a solo artist, whether it's original or covering actual, cover music. And so, it's gonna be a fun little thing to maximize, right? Trying to enjoy the moment, perform, do the gig, but also have something to reflect on and to hopefully propel future music performances, right? Future gigs. Well, that's it for now. I think hopefully we all learned a lesson on eating right. Once you hit 40, you can't just eat garbage, and that water is real, right? And so sometimes that can be a thing to consider when you're doing a gig, how to protect your gear. What else? The fact that being a solo artist or a musician doing a solo gig can be different, but also very rewarding if you're doing the homework ahead of time, right? So that way, when you're at the gig, you can go ahead and feel confident in the pieces you're doing, but also take some risks, right? Whether it's in your solos or laying down a different loop, right? A different approach to how you would have done the song initially. I'm sure bands that do music over and over and over many times will start morphing the cover song or the original music a little here and there, because it's human nature, right? Things evolve. We start adding this or taking this out, and we want to be constantly revamping what we do. We want to feel like it's fresh, right? Not just to the listener, but to ourselves. If we're going to be doing it, it might as well be fun. It might as well feel fresh, and feel like we haven't been beating something over way too many times, right? A broken record is a broken record, and we want to go ahead and make sure that the music is worth doing, right? So thank you for listening. I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll catch you at the next episode.